When I say I'm over these trucks beeping constantly at me, this is what I mean. Now, it is informing me that it is not happy that I'm idling. So it's beeping nonstop at me. But some of these trucks do this over and over again, driving me crazy all day long. If you touch the brakes, it beeps just like this. If you accelerate, it beeps just like this. If you pass something on the left or right that it doesn't like, it will beep. That is annoying to me. So I'm going to turn it off now so this thing will shut up. Now we can finally move on. All right. Let's talk about this week to begin with. I know the lighting is horrible. I'm sorry about that. I started out, let me start out by saying that I did inquire about the pay because I mentioned that I was a little concerned about pay and was looking at doing a special episode on pay. I don't need to, though. The reason why is because something was made clear to me. And that is that if it appears that based on your mileage rate, you're going to be paid less in miles than you would get if you got a flat rate fee of $50 plus $15 per stop. Doesn't matter how long you're there. But if you're going to be there for at least 15, I'm sorry, I'm touching this because the for whatever reason the camera's sliding down. But if whatever the stop is that you make, you're paid $15 per stop. So if you're unloading there for 10 minutes, $15. If you're unloading there for an hour, $15. If it's a Sam's Club and you're there an hour and 45 minutes, $15. That's what it is. And if your mileage, geez, this thing is just terrible tonight. I don't know why. I'm going to have to make a change. I'm sorry about this on the fly. I'm going to do this and hope that this thing straightens up because I am not going to deal with this thing constantly changing up and sliding if I can help it. All right, so that's the Martin way. If it looks like mileage-wise you're going to make less than $50, they will pay you a flat rate of $50. So some of the jobs that I've gone on would normally pay a flat rate of $50. So that's why on my paycheck, I see flat rate of $50 and $15 per stop. So I make $65 if I do one of these Sam's Club runs. And so if I get here early, if I leave at, let's say, 2 a.m. and I get here at, let's say, 3 a.m. and they don't open until 4 a.m. and they don't get me unloaded until, let's just say, 5 a.m. and I get back at 6, it doesn't matter that took 4 hours total, including an hour of basically me waiting, which would be on me because I chose to get there early. But that doesn't matter. They pay a flat rate. To me, I'm not a fan of this system. But I guess it could be worse if they didn't pay anything. That seems to be something that, as I understand it, it's a fairly new thing that people will start to compensate you for non-drive time. I wish it was more, but at least it seems to be an automated process where if based on the mileage it determines that you would make more at a flat rate fee, it goes ahead and pays you for that. So there you go. My Monday, I was assigned Pickens, Greenville, and Travelers Rest, then a one-stop Tucker, Sam's Club. It was another 6 p.m. day where I started my day at 6 p.m. I arrived at Pickens. I got there by about 8:40 p.m. and they were so horribly disorganized. I had to run around. So when I arrived there, I had to run around the building because they just did not answer their door. So it took forever for them to get going. It took 30 minutes actually, just for me to wrangle the people to be able to unload me. And none of them had electric pallet jack certification. So it was manual pallet jacks only, and employees seemed like they had never unloaded a trailer before. It was slow. I think there must have been 7 people. 7 people there. And 3 of them were women who made excuses so they didn't have to move anything, and they constantly complained. That was something I don't want it to sound like a gender thing at all. One of them was a manager type person who was like, "Oh no, if I grabbed a pallet jack, it'd be going ultra slow. So I should just stand here and make sure that everybody's that we have a well-oiled machine." One woman comes over after that, grabs a pallet jack. She's like, "I can't push this thing up. It's just not going." And then the other one, she goes and jacks the thing up and then says, "I can't pull it. I can't pull it at all." And she just makes complaints. So that way they stand on the side and don't do literally anything. Leave it to the men folk to come over there, pallet jack the thing up, and then have 2 guys at most pull the pallets off. Anyway, that was fun. The next stop, Greenville. I was just about to run around when they told me that they had called a manager with a key. And it took a few minutes for them to wrangle that manager, but once I was in, it was average speed, maybe a little on the tad bit slow side, but it was fine. Traveler's Rest was pretty much quick to unload until the last 2 pallets. One of them was turned sideways. And here's the thing. Pallets normally have about that much of a gap underneath so that the forklifts that are about this big can slide under them. But if you turn some of these pallets the other way, they have a gap like this underneath it. And that's not enough for some of these pallet jacks to get under. Now, the rideable forklifts that we use at the DCs to load and Sam's Club has, those are like blades that slip in there and lift up. No problem there. But when they are mechanical, they go in there and they're like 3 inches tall and they push in there and then lift up. They can't get under there. So there's this big, huge process of having to move out pallets. Then you have to turn you come in at an angle, pick the thing up, turn it, flip it around. It's sometimes annoying for the Walmarts to get in there and spin them around. And it takes a while because sometimes it's your last pallet. All you need to do is just go in there and pick it straight up. But instead you have to move this other pallet out in order to come in from the side in order to spin it around. Then you have to move the pallet back. So it's a bit annoying, but hey, I guess it is what it is. Got back to the DC around 1:45 a.m., which is one of the advantages of me coming in at 6 o'clock as opposed to 7. I'm able to get in there in the 1 to 2 o'clock hour, and that allows me to get out by 2:15. So that way when I get someplace, like to the Sam's Club in Tucker by 3 a.m., there's not going to be as much of a chance of competition. People aren't going to be waiting there to get in the dock when I arrive. So that's nice. It's like right now, even as we speak, I am waiting at the Duluth Sam's Club, and they usually are pretty streamlined. They're usually able to get me in and out in 45 minutes. Now, the last week's episode, I actually recorded from the parking lot there once I arrived at 3 a.m. And I tell you, this is one of those things that was a bit crazy to me, because I got to that Sam's Club at 3 a.m. I did my update on AlleyDoc, talked about my week, and then I had received a message on my drive there that said, when you're done, go across the street and go through the inspection lane in the Tucker terminal. So I finished in Tucker. I drove across the street. Their inspection lane doesn't open up until 6 a.m. Well, I got there at about 5:45. So I got in the line. A couple other trucks got through the line in front of me. Now, they didn't tell me what I was there to do except just go through the inspection lane. So I thought maybe it's just, me going through the inspection lane and there shouldn't be an issue and I should be out of there really fast. But little did I realize that that was not the case. Because when I got there, they said, "Well, what are you here for?" And I said, "I don't know." And they said, "Well, maybe contact your office and find out." So I called them and they said, "Oh, you're there because your camera's not working." Okay. So it took them a while for somebody to come in that knew how to diagnose the camera. Then it took them over an hour to try various different things to make the camera work. By the time 8 o'clock rolled around, I realized that I had been working for 14 hours at that point. There was zero chance of me getting back to the DC. I called up and I said, "Hey, I need to get an Uber or something like that back because I'm going to have to leave the truck here." And they were like, "Okay, well, in order to get approval for an Uber, we need to wait until John comes in. He's our fleet manager. Once he came in, he was able to approve an Uber. They got me an Uber back, and then, but that took a while for me to get back. And then once I got back, they called me in for a meeting. So it was a long unload there in Tucker. Then it was a process of waiting for them to try to fix the camera. Then I had to get the Uber and wait for the Uber to arrive, then the Uber to get me to the DC. And then when I got there, I went to turn in my paperwork. All I wanted to do was go home, because at this point it was like almost 10 a.m. And I was called in for a meeting with the manager because they're of the hot topics. And this was basically a reiteration of all the hot topics from the previous time about making sure you come to complete stops, making sure that you send your free-form message that says goal every single time you stop to back up a tractor-trailer combination. All the stuff I'm basically doing. None of it was new. All of it was reiterating the policy, because I guess a lot of people aren't doing it. But anyway, so that was that. The one note I will say is that the Tucker Sam's Club, if they would have let me in earlier than 4:38 a.m., it would have been a different story. If they let me in, like this location here will let me in right at 4. So it's a lot more streamlined. And so I should get out of here by roughly about 4:45 or 4:50 on average from past experience. And today I'm going to go up and fuel up at the Brazelton Pilot, which is a terrible location to fuel up at, but at least it's going to be something that I will be able to fuel up at and hopefully get back to the DC by 6 a.m. So I will go to the Monroe Walmart and buy some groceries on my way home. All right. So anyway, that was that. Got out of there by just after 10 a.m. So I started just before 6 a.m. or so just before 6 p.m. and I got there just after 10 a.m. So that was a 16-hour day. I was exhausted. And I tell you, it was exhausting. I went to sleep, was tossing and turning again after going to sleep for about 3.5-4 hours. Then I got up, and it was time for me to try to check my loads and stuff like that. I was not able to get back to sleep, which is typical for me if the loads I'm not 100% sure about. So Tuesday, my load was Duluth and Lawrenceville first, then Ellijay, Blue Ridge, and Blairsville. Now, Duluth and Lawrenceville went fine. I was back in 3 hours, which is great. Ellijay, Blue Ridge, and Blairsville. I arrived in Ellijay just before midnight and was out in about 20 minutes, which is fine. I arrived in Blue Ridge at about 12:40, and I was out by about 1:10 a.m. I arrived in Blairsville at 1:40, and I was out by 2, so that is a streamlined day. Those days I love, because I was out by 2. That means I'm driving through the North Georgia mountains with a smile on my face, knowing full and well I don't have anything more to do except get back to the DC. And so, since I was so tired after my 16-hour day, I got back to the DC, and I was done. Unloaded, got home, disconnected the trailer, did all my paperwork and stuff like that. I was back at home probably before 5, which was wonderful. I was so appreciative of that day. Wednesday, I started off my day by going to Duluth, then Buford, and every single day this week I had a new truck. On my first day, I had the truck that I dropped off at the Tucker terminal because it had to have the camera worked on. The second day, I had a new truck, and they were asking me if I was going to be able to pick up my truck at the end of the day, and I was like, I don't know. It depends on the loads. When I contacted them at the end of the day and said, hey, it looks like I am going to have the hours. Would you like me to go get it? I was so hoping that they were going to tell me no. They said, no, the truck's been picked up. So I was like, oh, good. Oh, good. That's so awesome. So anyway, by the time I got to my Wednesday and I went to Duluth and Buford start off, and I had a new truck, the third new truck for the week. I had no assigned truck until I arrived. So I couldn't verify my loads, and that was extremely annoying. That's the disadvantage of slip seat, and especially because my regular truck that would have been driving was dropped off at the Tucker terminal, and then Once it was picked up, it was reassigned to someone else. So I did not have a truck assigned. Once I got there, they assigned me a new truck. All right, once you're assigned a new truck, that's when you can see the loads you're sent. They do not allow you to, the app does not, if you have no assigned assets, or a truck in this case, you cannot see the loads you're sent because you have no truck to drive a load, so it doesn't bother sending you the load. So anyway, it ended up being fine. I got to Duluth. It went fine. Only took about half an hour to do. I got to Buford, and this was frozen dairy, by the way. It wasn't a meat and produce. And so I was in the dock, and I'm sorry, this was a meat and produce, but when I got to Buford, there was a frozen dairy already in the dock. And when I arrived, he was done in only a few minutes. He was out of there pretty quickly. I rang the doorbell once and waited for them to let the other driver out. I just wanted them to know that I was there. But the other driver was done within a couple of moments, so I was able to get in there pretty quickly. I wasn't going to sit there and ring the doorbell over and over again, knowing there was another driver in there unloading. I went ahead and just rang it one time in case the door was something open and somebody was standing around to open it, because it was still kind of early. It was only second shift. It wasn't even 10 p.m. yet. But after I rang it once, I just waited. And it was not even 5 minutes before the door opened up and the other driver was leaving and I was up next. So that was fine. But Buford was running a little slow that night. I don't know why. There was the guy that was pulling off of the trailer. He kept getting distracted and talking to various other people. There was a girl there with piercings all over her face and red hair and stuff, and she was just walking extremely slow no matter what. And they seemed to get along great, but she just was very slow. She'd go by with the forklift or the little pallet jack, and she was just walking by slowly. It's like, geez, in slow motion. I don't know why. Anyway, I got back to the DC about 10:15, so it was a little bit over 4 hours this night. And the Omnitrax, right as I was pulling back out of the DC with my second load of the night, it just went into this non-stop real loop. It was just restart, 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 restart. It did not stop until about almost 2 hours later when I got to Seneca. But when I got there, it had wiped my entire trip, which is annoying because you put in the trip and it gives you all of your information. You put in all your information, takes you a few minutes to enter all the information. Anyway, I got to Seneca, had to run around the building again because nobody was there in the back to let me in. By the time I got up to the front and was unloaded, they unloaded me in like 35 minutes, but it was a little bit over that by the time I got up to the front. Spent 8 or more minutes trying to re-enter all the stuff, the information into the Omnitrax, which was highly annoying. Called the office and told them I'd have the time. Anyway, that was the night. I take that back. That was the night that I told them that I could go and pick up the truck. The night before, I was mistaken. I misread my note. I was extremely tired, and I wasn't going to say a word about picking up the truck because I was so exhausted after doing that 16-hour day the night before. So that night, I stayed quiet. On my Wednesday, I offered to pick up the truck, and they said, no, it's already been brought back. I was like, okay, cool, no problem. So anyway, that was a call that I had made before I had made to the Clemson neighborhood market, which is the one that doesn't have a light in the loading dock area, so it's extremely dark. But this time the door was slightly ajar. The gate, the door that you normally back up to, was slightly open, and because of that, I could see the light on the inside, and it allowed me to line up perfectly and back straight in perfectly fine, which was wonderful. And the back end was so much easier. And so I got inside and I said, I ran around the side, the door was open. So I got there and I said, hey, did you just happen to have the door open, or did you know I was coming? They said, nope, we saw that your ETA was there. I happened to see it. So I went ahead and opened up the door at, about the time of your ETA, a couple minutes before, because I was in the dock waiting. So I was like, beautiful. Thank you so much. So anyway, since I was coming from Seneca and they knew that from I guess seeing something online, they knew it wasn't going to take me very long. And since I put in my ETA and it hit their system, they knew it wasn't going to be very long, and they were waiting for me, which was awesome. I made it out of there by 1:25 a.m. And then I arrived in Anderson, the Anderson Walmart at 1:52. And I started ringing the doorbell and knocking on the door, hoping to catch him before lunchtime. After 4 minutes, was told the manager was on his way, and the door was open for me at 2:01 a.m. And he didn't have the key for the pallet jack which was in the dock where I was parked. It was apparently a new pallet jack. And he said, that's parked right in the dock that you're in. Would you mind moving over a dock space? Because I don't have the key for that. We just got this pallet jack and no one has the key for it yet. So I was like, sure, no problem. So I just moved over the next one. And they got the process going, and they started unloading and running. It was very streamlined. However, I will say this. He was pretty streamlined in his activity, but he was unloading and running by himself. The pallet jack was fairly fast, which is fine, but he had to run everything himself. But I wasn't overly bothered by it because it wasn't a huge distance, and because he was working during his 2 o'clock hour. They were not going to lunch at 2, so I was fine with it. At this point, I was like, perfectly fine. I actually, since it was the very last stop, and they were not collecting stickers, I said, you mind if I run to the restroom? So I ran up front, ran to the restroom. By the time I came back, he wasn't wasting time. The pallet jack was actually moving pretty quickly. So it didn't take a whole long time for me to get out of there. On my Thursday, assigned yet another truck. 4th day in a row, a different truck. And it was the same truck I was going to be in for my Thursday and Friday. So it's my favorite truck, by the way. So I was assigned Greenville, and Travelers Rest. And the OmniTrax was working again, which is something new. I didn't have to actually text in my numbers or send freeform messages. The first was a neighborhood market, and they had very limited space. So pulling off 6 pallets so they could get to the 2 behind in the first pro section, that took a while. The lady there was not overly confident with her abilities, and she was the only employee there with electric pallet jack certification. So I had to actually direct her how to do things. She was like, I don't know how to move this stuff. So I said, if I may, if you can position it this way. And she said, I don't know how to do that. So I said, all right, turn it this way. Now spin it this way. And now turn it this way. And she's like, okay, now press the handle, get the thing moving. I had to show her how to spin something on a dime, how to turn it in the inside the trailer in order to pull it out and then hook it to leave it. And then how to stack everything up in order to basically keep everything on the trailer itself. It was slow, but we got it done. The more annoying thing to me was that I had a second neighborhood market. Now, this is the one that could not unload me until almost 10:30 p.m. the previous week. So when I saw this show up there, I called them from the first stop while directing the lady. She was a little on the slow side, but we finally got things unloaded because there wasn't any room inside the neighborhood market. So it was unloading to the inside of the trailer. She was able to put 2 pallets inside the loading dock, but that took up all the space. So I had to stack. We had to load up 4 pallets on the side of the trailer itself, and then pull everything else around it. And I called the second neighborhood market, and they said, yeah, we're not able to unload until about 10:30. So show up at 10:30. Well, at this point, it was about 9. And I was only a few miles away from Travelers Rest. So I went ahead, knowing full and well Travelers Rest has this very experienced manager who's extremely good with the pallet jack. I went on over there. So I explained to them that that the second stop was not able to unload me for a while. So would they be okay with go ahead and shifting a couple of things and pulling things out? And they were like, sure. So it wasn't an issue. I was very, very appreciative of that. It took extra time but we were at least using our time effectively, because I got to the Traveler's Rest by about 9:30, and by the time we were done and shifted out of there and stuff like that, the experience manager was a master of Tetris. I tell you, he was able to position pallets, spin them around. We ended up, there was a little bit of extra room in there. He was, his pallets, his loading dock was pretty full too. So, but what he was able to do is they had a little bit of extra gap after the first section. So after he pulled off his pallets, I said, do you think you might be able to pull this pallet off, slide it, and spin it, and at the same time pull it out? He says, maybe. So he actually tried it and was able to Tetris the thing out, because there was a little bit of a gap between the bulkhead in front of that pallet and it. So he was able to pull that one out and positioned it around in front of the other pallets. Just enough to be able to pull it all the way out and leave with it. But anyway, so we got out of there. He was awesome. Their team was awesome with their runners and stuff like that. I got out of there. I got at the to the other neighborhood market, the second one. I got there. It was before 11. It was about 10:50, 10:57, I think, is the time that I was inside. And they were none the wiser. And because of that, I saved like an hour, because I was, instead of them unloading me at about 10:30, I was able to get there with the whole with the rest of the trailer being theirs by about just before 11. So he had me unloaded pretty fast, and I was out of there. I got back to the DC and was out with the new trailer just after 2, and to the Duluth Sam's Club here at 3 a.m. And that's fine. They opened the door right at 4 o'clock, and we're unloading me within 5 minutes. The guy that's there, he's extremely experienced, very fast, and they don't have to go all the way across the store with their pallets. So it was fine. He was done. I was done by 4:50, and I was back to the DC, unloaded, dropped the trailer, done my post-trip inspections and stuff like that. I was out of there by 6:15. It was awesome. My Friday. Now, my family ended up going on a kind of a weekend vacation. They got a good deal on a two-night vacation, and being that they're about to go back to school, they offered me, they said, when you get off work, you want to drive out and spend the rest of the day with us. And because they were planning on leaving the next day. So I said I would love to. So I called and asked. After I saw my load come through, I had contacted the office and said, can I speak to the planner? Wasn't able to speak to him, so I left him a voicemail and said, my family has offered me the opportunity to catch up with them on kind of a family vacation type thing. If I can catch up with them, I would really love to. So if it's possible to schedule me a combination of jobs that would allow me to finish by maybe 3 or by 4 a.m. at the latest, please, if it's possible to send me jobs that avoid 4 a.m. stores, I'd really appreciate it. He sent me a couple of combinations of jobs, and I looked at it and was like, at first. But then a job came through, including the Greenville neighborhood market that I can't unload to until 10:30. And it was at the last stop. So that's when I called the office and requested that they change me out. So that was the very first time I called. That was the time that I called the office. I was sent a couple of loads, but the one that finally stuck was Evans Augusta and Gainesville times 2 different loads. So it was I got so basically no 4 a.m. stores, which was awesome. I was going to be out of the DC hopefully before 6 p.m. There was really bad storms, so my drive east was a little on the slow side. Evans took a few minutes to get moving because the electric pallet jack wasn't charged, but once they got everything moving, they had a big team. They had a big team to run things. So that was awesome. I got in. Let me see my note here. Let's see. Got out in 30 minutes and was to Augusta at 21:15. Now there was a meat and produce driver already there, and he was unloading, finishing up, but the door was locked. The door to my to get in was locked. So it took a while for me to get in there. And then once I did, they were unloading everybody else. They were unloading the other truck. But the second that meat and produce driver was done, because I was a frozen dairy, they vanished. They were not unloading me. They just literally vanished. And I went and found meat and produce. I went and found the frozen dairy people, and I was like, "Can you unload me?" And there was one guy. He was like, "I don't unload people. I guess I'll see if I can find someone." It took him a while to wrangle somebody. By the time they finally got somebody to come back there, he was about to leave for the day, and he was like, "Well, they don't pay us overtime, so let's see what happens." That's like, good God. It took forever. I think he's coming to talk to me. Hey, boss.
They got 2 dots and then one.
Just the one. Yeah, sorry. How much do you have? Luckily, this store is pretty quick. They let you in right at 4, and they get moving pretty quick. So that's good. Have a good one, man. Huh? No, not usually until right at 4. Anyway, let me see if I can finish this up, because he is pretty much right that if the door is unlocked, they'll serve us pretty quickly, or at least they'll get to us pretty quickly. So let me finish this up. I tell you, by the time I wrangled it, this guy unloaded me, and he unloaded everything except the last few pallets. It was like the last 3 pallets, and it was such a bad location. I tell you, I'd never been to this Augusta location, but it took them forever to unload, to get moving. And then once they did, the guy got me completely unloaded. The one guy with pallet jack experience, everybody else was just single pallet, the regular pallet jack unloading. Got one pallet moving at a time. I'm like, can you get anybody else? And finally they got this one guy that was electric pallet jack, but he ended up leaving at 10. So, and there was 3 pallets left, and trying to wrangle, or maybe it was 5 pallets left. That's what it was. And it took them forever, because everybody would move one pallet, run one pallet, and then vanish. So it's like, for whatever reason, they were just so disorganized. And it took, by the time they got another person to unload me, I didn't get out of there. It was one guy that was unloading, and he was with a regular pallet jack, not an electric. And it just took forever for them to get out. I didn't get out of there until about 10:30. I mean, he traded off to another guy, and then that guy didn't hustle. The electric pallet guy, he vanished, disappeared after talking to another guy and saying, "Yeah, I'll do one more," and then vanished. And I'm like, where did he go? And then the one guy that was running, he was like, "Yep, this is a Walmart for you." I'm like, I've never seen a Walmart this badly organized. So I had to go and hunt down more guys to actually unload me. One guy came and finished unloading me. The one remainder guy he just shrugged at me and said Walmart. When I said, what happened to the guys, he just shrugged and said Walmart, and then mumbled something. I couldn't understand him. Anyway, the last pallet then got stuck. It wouldn't move. Nobody was certified to run the electric, so it just took them forever to get the thing off of there. It took me over an hour to get out of there. Most dysfunctional Walmart I've ever seen, from the staffing to the building location to the dock layout. It was just terrible. In order to get in there, you had to go all the way around the side of the building on this road. Then you got in the back. It was just, and then you had to loop around, and then they didn't even open the door. They didn't monitor the dock, and no one had the key, so you had to run all the way around. It was the only location I've run into where there was no manager there to unlock the door for me again. So I literally had to run around the building in order to leave again. Got back to the DC, and my 2-stop Gainesville wasn't ready. I got back to the DC just after midnight. Despite my delays, I was still rushing like crazy. It was only 32% when I got there. So annoyed, because all I wanted to do is finish my day up to go be with my family. And it took nearly 2 hours for them to get the thing loaded, and for me to get out of and for me to pick it up and get out of the DC. So anyway, I got to the Gainesville Supercenter and had 18 pallets there, was still unloaded within 30 minutes. And then I arrived at the Gainesville Neighborhood Market at 3:45, and there was 2 trucks already in the dock. One had 4, it was a Coke truck, had 4 pallets, and he was in the process of unloading. And the other one was a water truck, had 6 pallets. So I'm sorry. There was a water truck that had 4 pallets. There was a Coke truck that had 6 pallets, and both of them would not leave the dock. I pulled up there, and there was one guy that was just pulling out of his trailer. Just say, well, I got here before the last guy. He just ran in before me. So if you're going to kick somebody out of the dock, kick him out. I go inside and say, how many pallets you guys got? And he says, one guy said 4, the other guy said 6. The guy with 4 was already halfway unloaded. He says, I'm already 2 pallets out. If you could just let me pull these real quick, I'll clear out the dock for you. I'm like, sounds good. He didn't, because they have to verify the pallets. So he verified, but then he just futzed around. He moved things around. He did whatever in the world he was going to do. It took him forever. They did not get out of the dock until about 4:20. So I was there waiting 35 minutes before they finally got out of the dock and had all the stuff verified. I finally got in there, and I was out by 4:50. I had to go and fuel up, and then got out, and then got back to the DC around 6:20. The lady in the office dropped her mouth, because she was the one that was trying to help me get out of there so I could go see my family by no later than 4. She was the one that asked me what time you'd like to be done. I said between 3 and 4. So when I walked in there and she saw me, her mouth dropped, and I'm like, and because it was 6:20, I'm like, just nodded at her, and she's like, "What happened, honey?" I said, my load was not ready until almost 2 hours after I got there. Was not loaded until almost 2, and they couldn't ship me anything else. She was like, I'm so sorry. Anyway, that was that. Was able to go and meet up with my family. It was an exhausting day. That was my week, though. Could have been better, could have been worse. When it was bad, it was so bad. So disorganized. 4 different trucks in a 5-day week. It was just crazy. The stores that were streamlined and fast were streamlined and fast. The ones that were not were so horribly disorganized, it was crazy. So anyway, that's it. It is right now 3:56 a.m. That Sam's Club is going to be opening up their doors in a couple moments, and I am not going to waste any more time. I'm going to get in there and get out so that way I can fuel up. So with that said, thank you for watching.